Hello, everyone, and welcome to Faction Wars, a New World podcast. My name is Taylar Allen, and joining me today is not Stephen Fontana, but my good friend, company mate, the man I play with the most, Joseph Butler, aka Joby. Welcome to the show, Joe. That was a tongue twister.
Thank you. Thanks for welcoming me. I feel very welcomed, and I'm really happy to be here.
So I've been trying to get you on the show basically since we started. I've been begging you and begging you. And I understand you have a baby, like a fresh baby, right? So it's difficult, but I'm glad that we were finally able to figure something out to get you on here. For the audience members listening at home, that in these first 30 seconds you go, wow, that man has a beautiful sultry voice. I would like to listen to that more often. I have good news for you. Joe is going to be joining us as a permanent third chair. Obviously, family, things like that come up. Like Steven's moving this week. That's why he's not here. But yeah, Joe's going to be joining us on a semi-regular or mostly regular basis because he and I nerd out about New World every day. I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm. That's all true, except for the part where you were begging me to come on the show, because I'm pretty sure I was the one begging you to let me come so that I can nerd out more than I already do.
You're not supposed to throw me under the bus, Joe. Come on, bro.
I just didn't like, my perspective from under the bus, so I just needed, I don't know.
All right, fair.
Either way, happy to be here.
Well, Joe, today we have a lot that we're going to be going over, as is Faction Wars standard. The day after we release an episode, we get a massive announcement with a bunch of content. This has happened. This is episode 7. This has probably happened on like 4 of our episodes, where the day after we release an episode, they just randomly drop a bunch of news. We even delayed our episode a day last week so that we could get the most up-to-date info on the Winter Convergence and give us some hands-on. And then the day after, they have to go and drop that dev update. So...
Well,
we've got
great tradition to start.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's great. We've got a lot to cover this week. For those of you that don't know, though, this is Faction Wars, a New World podcast. The podcast with the latest news, tips, tricks, and stories from Eternum. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast services, including Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on an Apple device right now, or even if you're not, if you have an Apple device that you're not listening on, go to it. Search Faction Wars. We pop right up. We're the very first thing. Leave us a review. Reviews on Apple help us a ton to feed the algorithm. So if you could go do that, that would be very much appreciated. Now, it's been a while since we've done this on Faction Wars, but I feel like because we have a new person entering the arena, we're going to be doing roll call again. So Joe, tell me, what is your build? What level are you? What you've been working on? Tell me about your character in Eternum.
Yeah. Okay, well, my character in Eternum, dubbed Lambent Sage in Eternum, is currently level 60. I've got quite a bit of progress on the trade skills as well. But my build is currently really weird. I'm one of those people who always is jumping around between builds because I love all the different weapons and all the different play styles. But I think that I've kind of settled in a little bit to wanting to go more of a tank route.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now I'm just trying out a few different things to try and be a little bit creative with that. So currently I'm running the spear and rapier actually, with a focus in dexterity for my attributes. And I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, I guess. But yeah, just been experimenting a little bit there, using the Carnelian gems, using some of the lesser known taunt abilities, and having a lot of fun with this unique build.
Yes, the ever so famous tank weapon, the rapier.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised.
As someone who plays with you pretty frequently, I can say it has worked way better than I ever thought it would. Way better.
I was able to tank for a group through mines without too much issue. So yeah, it's in the testing phase right now, but so far so good.
That's amazing. For context, Joe has from the beginning been playing around with weird combinations of weapons and trying to fit like a unconventional role, right? I believe you are the one that dubbed the phrase the Twizzard, which is a
Yes.
tanky wizard. So he
Yes.
was doing like up close fire staff stuff. Like it was a pretty interesting combo actually. So Joe is
Yeah.
famous for doing weird off meta combos.
And again, it's not because I'm like the ultimate New World hipster or anything and trying to be different. It's just because I love all the different weapons, and it makes me sad to think that like there are abilities and opportunities that are left, without being explored, and I just get too curious and just want to try it out.
Yeah, it definitely is fun playing with the different weapon and ability combinations. As someone who doesn't do that,
Yeah,
who's
you wouldn't
been,
know.
yeah, kind of pigeonholed into this healing role and have, begrudgingly fallen in love with it. I don't really venture too far outside of that. So,
But you have been a little bit recently with the Void Gauntlet, right?
yeah, but like I got that up to Weapon Mastery 20. I don't plan on leaving the Void Gauntlet anytime soon. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I find what I like and I stick with it.
Yeah,
I think I only have like 2 or 3 other weapons at 20. So
yeah. Void Gauntlet is the only one I don't have at 20.
yeah, you're a
just
monster.
haven't gotten around to it yet.
All right, well, it is time to jump into News World. We have a lot of stuff to go over, like I mentioned at the top of the show. We are going to start somewhere that we don't typically start, with the most recent patch, patch 1.2.1, because it's tiny. It's a baby patch. It's itty bitty. I think here we've played this game before. I'm going to have you time me. I'm going to read through these patch notes. Okay. We'll see how long it takes. Ready?
I am ready.
Restricted coin lock boxes earned from the Tree of Light to players level 14 and above. Reduce the amount of characters that can be created per day per account. Fix an issue causing Azoth balances to not be updated. Fix an issue that caused potions to drop at multiple gear scores, resulting in inventory stacking issues. Enable a level playing field for players. We reset the faction cooldown time for all players. Fix an issue that occasionally caused the Weavers needed town project mission for winter convergence not be completed. End.
Solid 25 seconds.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's very short. We got 6 bullet points. It's mostly just bug fixes, pretty minor stuff. But I will say, since this patch has come out, I've noticed that the map is a little bit snappier. It seems like my missions are pinning and showing up correctly. I'm not getting stuff that is just like completely disappearing off of my mini map to turn in anymore, which is very much needed, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, that's great. I think I also noticed too that I'm able to move things in bulk into my storage now.
Oh, that's
like
right.
A section at a time. So that's
Yes,
also
they
a
didn't mention that.
very nice fix.
Yeah. So that was very annoying, just having to shift click and spam until you got all 900 gems that you were moving from one town to another out there. But yeah, very, very nice. It's good that they're still, from release, putting out weekly patches. I think that goes unappreciated because not a lot of games are doing weekly updates. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead too much here, but in the dev update, they actually talked about the pacing that they were going at and how it's a little bit like more of an advanced pace than what is typical, and so that's kind of affected how they've been releasing things and how things have been getting fixed. But we'll get more into that. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of see a little bit behind the curtain with things like this.
Yeah, I agree. And I think more importantly with this update is I know that they have been laying the groundwork for server merges for a while. Now, luckily, or maybe unluckily, I don't know, we were actually one of the first like 5 server clusters, 10 server clusters on US East to get merged. Now, the merge initially was a shock because we transferred to a server that was literally wall to wall, every single territory was purple. And so we get on right after the merge downtime has ended and open up our map for the first time and see that, and I have a panic attack, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm like,
Same.
I just convinced this smaller company of like 10 people to switch factions and join us like a month ago, right? They transferred to our server, they switched from purple to green, and then our server kind of, slowed down. Purple took over. They had all but 2 territories. And I was like, yes, at this merge, we'll see, a better balance, right? We get in and it's all purple. I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and because I think that we were under the impression too that it was kind of more of a green yellow
Yeah.
dominant server that we were coming to. So I think we had our hopes up for it to be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And especially coming from our past server where it was purple dominant as well, was a little disappointing there.
Yeah. And so, like, at first glance, as I was watching global chat, every 10 minutes, as a new person would sign on, literally the first message from them, without fail, was like, WTF is this map, right? Like, just so
Yeah.
many people. I was like, oh no. But then we got in there and we started talking to other people in faction. And like, there was this really awesome energy. Like, the entire server was just kind of like buzzing. It was super active, like seeing tons of people running in and out. Sell orders were moving super, super fast on the marketplace, which I had to like sell off a bunch of stuff because all of my sell orders ended and deposited into my Windsward storage. And so I had like 1,000 pounds over storage or something. So I was like, relist everything. But like stuff was flying, right? And then we started talking about like, all right, we got to start pushing these different territories and declaring wars and stuff. And within like 4 hours, I think we had influence pushed on 4 different territories. And it was fun and it was exciting, and it like there was a sense of newness about joining the server that I hadn't felt with my main character, with our company in a long time. So it's been really awesome. This just happened on Monday, so we're still fairly fresh, but it's been a lot of fun. What have your impressions been of the server merges so far?
Yeah, I mean, it feels kind of like what you just said. It's buzzing. It feels similar to launch day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember like during launch going out and trying to do some of the faction quests or some of the initial side quests around Windward where I started, and I was having to like fight fight as hard as I could to try and find like one single elk in an area that I
Mm-hmm.
could kill and skin, right?
Yeah.
And now it's not that bad, obviously, but like it's nice to be wandering out in the wilderness and see people like just going about
All the
their business,
time.
doing whatever they're doing. Yeah, and it just feels more alive and full, and I guess more like a truly online shared world than an online game where you occasionally interact with other people when you have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's been weird not being able to just run around everywhere and do everything flagged too.
Yeah,
Because this
you're
server,
actually worried now.
yeah, this server takes PvP very seriously. And if you're not paying attention out in the open world, you're gonna get clobbered. Like
Hmm.
you can't just flag and run through mines solo anymore. You can't just flag and like go and harvest resources anymore, because they will find you and they will kill you.
Yes, this is
I
true.
I made that mistake. I was just running outside of Windsward. It's like, I'll go gather some stone, right? Because
Hmm.
I got my stone cutting up to 200 today, so I just needed to like get over that last little hump.
Very
Um,
exciting.
so I was gathering stone. Totally forgot that I was flagged, and out of nowhere, I see this dude run up, and I see he's flagged, and I was like, oh, whatever, go about my business, start smacking this rock. And he comes up, great axe, feral rush right at me, reap. I dead in like 5 seconds because I'm a life staff user, I'm squishy boy. I was like, forgot that I was flagged, but it was actually a guy from our last server, so I DM'd him and we laughed about it. But
Yeah.
It's fun that there are like stakes now, you know, and
Yes.
like there's
Yes.
these rivalries between the factions, and like there's all of this renewed energy. We actually had a bunch of people who were on purple on our last server just switch to green because they like really enjoy PvP too, and they like couldn't push territory influence or anything because the entire map was
Hmm,
purple. And so they
interesting.
were
Yeah.
like, yeah, we want to be the underdogs and we want to like fight against this giant map of purple because we think we can take it over. And so it's been a lot of fun. I've
Well,
really enjoyed it.
and that kind of touches on this other point that I've seen is whenever I recognize a name from our past server, there's
Hmm.
like an immediate sense of camaraderie,
Yeah,
just because
totally.
we're both from Royalo or however you say it.
Yeah,
So it's kind of fun to experience that, and that's cool to hear that there are some people that might have been our enemy in the past that are now our allies. That's
yeah.
fun. I really
I
like that stuff.
I actually saw someone post on Reddit that I thought it was a great idea, so I'd love to mention it here. Um, they said that if your server is merged to another one, everyone from the merging in server, so the server that doesn't exist anymore, should get a unique title that is the old server's name. So
Oh,
that you
that
can
would be
like,
very cool.
so you can see like, oh, that was like that dude from my last server, you know?
Hmm.
I think that's a
Hmm.
great idea. I would love it if they would implement that.
Yeah, that would be great. Or at least an easier option would even just be just give everyone a title of that's the name of the server that their character was created in initially. Just so
Sure.
everyone gets it, everyone can kind of have that. That would be really cool. I'd like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah. But it was so fun this last week scrolling through Reddit because listen, I love the New World subreddit, but sometimes it can be a bit of a downer, right? But scrolling through it this week, it was all just these like massive group pictures of these servers that decided to like get together in one area and take a a big group picture right before merge. It was really cool,
Yeah.
and there
I
was
had a
just a
little bit
bunch
of
of them.
that's great. I had a little bit of that experience right before our server got merged. Just in global chat, everyone was just kind of in a kind of joking way being all like sappy and sentimental about Roylo dying.
Yeah,
And people were like, I'm gonna go and spend the last hours sitting on the beach where I started fishing and just wait it out until it dies. And I actually joined a group of a bunch of people who all wanted to go and do one last run through mines before it died. It was just kind of cool. It's just a big change like this inevitably brings with it interesting stories and interesting pairings of people that might have otherwise not happened.
yeah, absolutely. All right, that's enough reminiscing and being sappy about our old server. But if you are on a server that's going to be merged, I would be very excited and anticipate that because the energy that it's created has been just absolutely awesome. Now, the next item on News World this week, quickly, we're going to touch on Prime Gaming update because for the very first time since the game launched, we don't have anything else to look forward to in Prime Gaming. And I think that they're probably just going to add some more stuff in the new year. Like they're obviously going to, it's Amazon. They're going to use their own thing, but we don't know what we can look forward to. The Thespian Pack just dropped yesterday, today, something like that. And now there's nothing to look forward to. So until the new year, big shrugs. No idea.
However, I will say that the amount of free stuff we've gotten from Prime Gaming in this game has been good, and like the skins
Mm-hmm.
that we've gotten, I think are actually pretty cool, and I've used them. And this thespian one is actually pretty sweet. It looked goofy at first, but it's actually pretty cool, and I think it could pair well with like the Void touched armor skin or
Sure.
even like the fisherman skin with the purples in it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's cool. I think they've done a good job with it so far.
Yeah, I will say I think the Thespian skin is the best one that they've released so far. Um, the fact that they're giving you free premium currency with this is awesome. The weapon skins, in my opinion, leave a lot to be desired. Like it kind of stinks what they've offered so far. Very boring. But the emotes, I think, have been some of the best offerings out there. I still use from the very first Prime Gaming drop the pirate stance emote more than almost anything.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite emotes, and so
I miss when the barrel was absent and you just got to put your foot up in the air.
yeah,
Those were the good old days.
yeah, simpler times back then. But hold your pants. We'll see what's coming next from Prime Gaming.
Yeah.
But as far as other additional free new skins, they did announce today, yesterday. When was that?
I think it was this morning.
This morning, yeah. The New World and the Wheel of Time are going to be pairing up because the Wheel of Time is a Prime Video show. Is going to be teaming up and releasing some skin sets as Twitch drops. So, starting the day that this episode releases, December 23rd at 9 p.m., and then January 12th at 12 a.m., these are both Pacific time. Sorry, between December 23rd and January 12th, if that wasn't clear. If you watch 7 cumulative hours of New World drops enabled streams between that window, you're going to get 7 new Prime Gaming drops that include 2 weapon skins, a company crest, and 4 armor skins. So it looks pretty cool. They give out a list of a bunch of streamers that are doing watch parties and stuff for the Wheel of Time finale. I think they look interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually like them. I'm like one of those weirdos who likes to get into the role play of the game, and so I like my character to have clothing that's not like super crazy. And so some stuff like this that's a little more, I guess, subtle and could be used alongside other skins is exciting to me.
Yeah, I like it. And I think the colors pop just enough, like especially on that red one, that like red tunic that they have, I think is beautiful. Because it's like, it's red, but it's believable. You know, it's not like neon Call of Duty red. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know if like the look of these would have some significance to someone who has read the books or has watched the show. I'm sure there's some connection, obviously, but just as a third-party observer, I think they look pretty neat.
Yeah, and I think one of the sword skin I think looks really good. The like
darker one?
Yeah, that like darker, more jagged one, or is that the rapier? I don't know. One is a rapier skin,
tell.
one is a sword skin.
Yeah, one of them looks like a bit of a katana, like a one-sided sword, and then the others, yeah, it has like a serrated edge. It's like a dark metal. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah. But very happy with it. I think they look great. I'm stoked about this. Definitely gonna make sure that I've got one of those Twitch streams up to get those drops. All right, final item in News World. This is the biggest one. We're gonna jump into the dev update video that they posted last week. Going over it was like an hour and a half long. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend it. I love stuff like this personally. I think it humanizes the developer team, and like, kind of puts a face to who's making the game that you're pouring hundreds of hours into. So I love stuff like this. I would love it if they would do this like every quarter. And just kind of like give a glimpse into what they're working on, some of the hard things that they ran into, things like that. So pretty big list of things that they went down. First and foremost, they announced some of the content that they're working on for the next couple of months, including they detailed probably what's going to be the biggest part of the January update. Which is Dungeon Mutations. So if you haven't watched the video, what Dungeon Mutations are is a like tiered ladder system of increasing difficulty modifiers for the existing dungeons in the game. They said that they're adding 10 tiers of difficulty. These are things that they're wanting you to run multiple times a day, and this is going to be like the premier end game PvE content, they said. With this, they will include a gear score increase so that you can take on the toughest iterations of these dungeons, which makes me think these are not going to be a joke. Like, these are going to make Mirkgard look like a walk in the park. which I'm super excited about. Like, I really enjoy the PvE content in this game. I think the dungeons are some of the strongest content that they have. And so I'm stoked about this.
Yeah, same. I think that it's going to add some much needed freshness to the dungeons, and again, like you said, already I think they're really good, and I think they're some of the funnest content in the game. But I can imagine if you're someone who's able to run those like multiple times a week, that eventually it'd start to feel a little stale.
Mhm.
But now, and I think the way it works is now with the mutations, it's going to be kind of like a rotating cycle where I think each week, I could be wrong on that, but each week or so, they're going to like change what the mutation is, and that'll kind of affect how you go through the dungeon. And I think they even said it'll affect the type of gear that you might get in the loot
Yeah.
as you go through it.
Yeah, so it sounds like each tier of this 10 tier system is going to have different mutations. So it'll be like enemies deal fire damage or something like that, or enemies are immune to whatever type of damage. Or a couple of examples that they gave, but it sounds like there's a bunch of different things that they're going to be able to do. Maybe it'll be like unique types of enemies in these dungeons that you don't normally see. New bosses, things like that.
Every enemy's a slicer.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be similar to like if you play Destiny, like Nightfalls, where you have a rotating modifier every day or every week, and you kind of have to work through that ladder for each of those tiers. I don't know if they're going to also rotate the dungeon that's on feature for that week, or if it's going to be all of them. They didn't really detail it that much. But I'm excited about this. I think the system is going to offer a lot more for PvE players to look forward to in the end game.
Yeah, and something else that I'm excited about with this too is that I think this will give some uh, I guess it'll give some like validity or something to a lot of the armor perks or weapon perks
Mm-hmm.
that before were to some degree useless. Like in my mind, I've always thought, why in the world would I ever put like a pristine um, topaz, for example, to give me like lightning resistance in like a really nice piece of gear? Because like
Yeah.
when I don't know, it's just like when do you need lightning resistance?
There's like
But
10 lightning enemies in the entire game.
yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, it's just kind of silly. But with this, if this week the mutation is that enemies deal like lightning damage, then that suddenly becomes extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So little things like that, I just love the new doors that this is going to open, and I hope that we start to see a lot more variety in what's like considered meta or what's going to be valuable or you know in high demand.
Yeah, I think it will definitely give stone cutters, especially pristine stone cutters that have, leveled up their arcana to be able to craft quintessence and stuff as well, a lot more value in the game. So very
Yeah.
excited about that as someone who recently hit 200 stone cutting.
Yes, and also like I think a lot of like the um
Craft
what are they
mods and
called?
stuff
Jeez.
that people
Yeah,
aren't
crafting
using.
mods that are considered like useless right now might
Hmm.
become much more valuable in the future as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. They also detailed a couple of new weapons that are going to be coming. So, for those of you that listened last week, we have a segment called Weapon of the Week where Steven usually pitches me a weapon that he wants to see introduced in the game. Last week, he said he wanted the blunderbuss. And then a day later, the developers announced that the next weapon being added to the game was the blunderbuss. Um,
Mhm.
so
So Steven is a
yeah,
prophet.
he is a prophet. Um, but super excited about that. They didn't tell us a lot about the weapon, but from both data mines and what they kind of hinted at in this dev update, it sounds like this is going to scale with strength and intelligence,
Mhm.
which like is a combination that we haven't seen yet in the game and sounds absolutely awesome for a number of different reasons. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, because I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think right now the only weapon that has strength as a secondary scaling on it is the spear. Um, and so the blunderbuss could, because if I had to guess,
Mm-hmm.
I would assume it'd probably be intelligence and then strength as the secondary. Um, but that could open up a lot of possibilities. I
Mm-hmm.
always love the idea of going in with a massive hammer and just taking all the bad guys to Bonk City.
Yeah.
But I really don't like not having a sort of ranged or more mobile option. So I think the blunderbuss can add a lot of spice to a more strength based, like heavy melee type of build. Very,
Sure.
very exciting stuff.
Sure. I hope that the blunderbuss plays almost like a melee weapon. Like maybe a reaching melee weapon like the spear, but I want it to have like a very short conical range, right? Where
Hmm.
you have to get right up in something's face if you're gonna hit it, but you're gonna hit it really hard when you do, kind of a thing. So I think that could offer a lot of utility for like fire staff users or musket users. You know, if they get
Yeah,
ran up on, trying to fight someone at close range with a musket is super difficult. And
terrible.
so having a blunderbuss as like a secondary, I think would be an awesome option. I think it gives really cool like role playing opportunities too. That you're just like this crack shot, big gun guy.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
excited
all I
about it.
want, dude. That's all I want. I just want to live out my piratical dreams and just be a musket blunderbuss wielding freaking swashbuckler. Sounds
Yeah,
like a great time.
yeah. But I think this is going to be a really fun new weapon. And then the second weapon that they mentioned was going to be coming soon is the Great Sword. Big two-handed sword. It sounds like that one's a little bit further down the road. I would bet that probably comes like March, April, maybe May, something like that. Um, so it sounds like it's down the road a little bit more, but I know people have really wanted some more like blade weapons. This sounds like a really cool idea to me.
Yeah. So initially, I was like, man, I can't think of a more boring sounding weapon than a great sword. um, just a big old chunk of metal I want to swing at people.
Hmm.
But from what they were talking about, it sounds like they want to introduce some sort of like stance variation. So
Yeah,
maybe it's gonna be something like almost like a hand and a half type of deal, where like you could technically wield it like one-handed and have maybe more mobility or more speed in your light attacks, or you can switch to two-handed and have heavier, harder hitting attacks. I don't know
yeah.
what it's going to look like, but the idea of having stance changing sounds really exciting to me.
Yeah, I was super excited when they had mentioned that. I love when they introduce like new unique mechanics and stuff. Like with Into the Void, they introduced a lot of really cool like debuffing abilities with the Void Gauntlet and some of the new perks that they introduced with the December patch, making it so that you can debuff your enemies more, so it's not just like spamming healing, right? And so as they introduce like more and more unique weapon abilities and mechanics that kind of like counter and pile on top of each other, I think that's all a great thing. So
Yeah. Yeah,
very,
like I
very
hope the
excited.
blunderbuss, for example, I hope that there's a lot of like disengage options, like a lot of pushback, a lot of,
Yeah,
you know, maybe jump and shoot it and push myself back really far. I think there's a lot they could do. But yeah, I totally agree. Very excited for the variety that's to come.
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Some of the other things that they detailed was the way that they handle bugs, bots, kind of the I don't want to say blunders, but like issues that they face since launch. I'm not going to get into like all of the details on all of this stuff, but I thought that section was like actually very endearing. I really enjoyed listening to them like feel for the player base and be like, we know that the game has like had some issues and we've been working like really hard to fix it. It's just, you know, this and this, and kind of like understanding their thought process behind things and why certain things have happened. They joked about like disabling trading and stuff, and they all kind of like uh kind of laughed and cringed at the same time. you know
Yeah.
but I thought that section was very nice and endearing, and like added a human element to this team that's making this game.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but I could really feel from them that they like care deeply about the integrity of the game too.
Yep.
When they were talking about bans and they were talking about how they try and handle things like that, in addition to the bugs, it just felt like, again, like the I guess the point of all of this, the point of all the fixing and the moving as fast as they can to try and take care of the most important things, is because the game being a great experience for everybody, and I guess like just having, again, integrity, having some sort of like solidity to it is very important to them, which is
Hmm.
really cool to me. Actually, like after listening to that, I actually reported a couple just like random bugs that I saw as I was running around. Like there was
Hmm.
a torch with no torch; it was just a fire like hanging in the wall. I went into the game menu, submitted feedback, and I just said, "Hey, just noticed this," because they can see like where your location is when you do that, and so I
Yeah,
don't know. It just made me want to like I guess help them make the game better because I could tell that they really cared about it.
yeah, yeah. I thought that was personally it was one of my favorite sections.
Yep,
Um,
same.
and they even made a joke. The lead QA, I think she was the QA person. I can't remember exactly what her position was. But she
Funny one.
even, yeah, she even joked like, um, "Hey, we promise we're not keeping things out of the patch notes from you. It's just like our engineers are over here doing stuff and they don't really tell people sometimes, and like they fudge a number, not realizing that that affects this entire loot table that has this like lasting consequence. So we promise we're not trying to like hide anything from you guys in these patch notes. We just got a lot of hands in the cookie jar kind of a thing."
Yeah, and I think that's emblematic of the sort of the feeling of the entire thing. Very transparent, very open. They're
Yep.
just wanting to connect with the players more and more, which
Yeah,
is great.
absolutely. Was there anything else from this update that really stood out to you that you liked?
Just the update in general, like the winter convergence update,
No,
or
from
the
the
dev kit
developer
specifically.
update. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, a little bit talking about the bands and stuff when they were talking about that. It was kind of just interesting how frank they were about like them not being okay with that type of behavior.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, but it kind of I've always just kind of felt I guess the culture around that type of stuff is like if you can get away with it and if it benefits you, like try it, I guess or something, or
Yeah.
it at least feels like that in the conversations I hear.
Sure.
But to them, it's like no, if you're gonna do something that's gonna affect other players in any way, including if you get somewhere or achieve something faster than someone else who did it the right way, like that affects them, that devalues what they're doing, and
Hmm.
that's not okay. And just hearing them being like super frank about that was really cool to me and made me be a lot more appreciative of the work that they do in that aspect. Um, but yeah, no, it was just a lot of good stuff. It was really good to kind of again see behind the curtain a little bit and um, get a glimpse into the future and what exciting things are waiting for us there.
Yeah, and it sounded like a lot of the stuff that they talked about is all going to be coming in the first couple of months of next year. Like it
Yeah.
was pretty short term. It didn't sound like they were pushing a lot of this stuff out, a year out or so. Like it was very immediate. Like the fact that Dungeon Mutations they're planning for the January update is
Hmm.
that really surprises me. But I think it's awesome. So
Hmm.
love this update. I hope we get to see this more often. Like I said, if I get this every quarter, I'm a happy man.
Yeah. Same.
All right, Joe. Well, that covers News World for this week. Let's get into the tips and tricks.
Oh boy.
So, I normally do this, but I'm going to have you give us a tip and or trick for this week's
Okay.
episode.
Very cool. Very exciting. So, my tip and or trick for this week is going to be um, paying more closer attention to damage type, actually. This is something that I have only recently really started to pay attention to a little bit more.
Mhm.
And it's had some huge effects for me. So, like I was saying earlier, my build right now is super weird. I'm doing a spear rapier um, tank build.
Yeah.
And so, the first kind of part of this is I went and looked through the weapon mastery abilities and realized that there are actually quite a few taunt abilities on weapons aside from the sword and shield.
Hmm.
So, for example, the great axe I think has one or two. Um, the hammer has one. The hatchet has one. The berserk ability. The
Hmm.
rapier's riposte, I think is how you say it,
Yep.
is a taunt. The spear's vault kick is a taunt. There's just like a lot, I guess, like more out there than I was initially thinking. And so, with this new interesting build, I realized that one of my weaknesses is that I do a lot of thrust damage
Hmm.
with rapier. Everything is thrust damage except for the riposte. When you stun them, it's blunt damage.
Yeah.
And then on the spear, it's primarily thrust damage, but there are a few a few abilities that do blunt damage as well.
Yeah.
And so I was really ineffective against Angry Earth areas. I was dealing a lot less damage. And actually, do you know what the percentage decrease is or increase when you have like an effective or ineffective damage type? I can't
Uh,
remember off the top of my head.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's like 50%. It's
Yeah,
50-40%. It's pretty significant.
I want to say 40, but yeah, it's huge. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so I realized that, and I realized that if I want to do something interesting with my build here, I need to kind of diversify my ability to do different damage types.
Hmm.
And so I spec'd my spear to be able to do quite a bit of blunt damage. So for example, I use whirlwind on the spear, I use
Hmm.
vault kick, and then I use the knockdown sweep.
Sweep. Yeah.
And all of those do blunt damage, and
Hmm.
so that has been helpful in areas where thrust is ineffective. I also got the hatchet, and I threw in a ruby onto a hatchet so that I could have a sort of secondary weapon option for slash damage, and specifically to go fight the Angry Earth, because I have slash damage and fire damage on that, which does quite a bit to Angry Earth. So I
Yeah.
was able to go and like solo Eridanis, for example, the elite area in Restless Shores with my hatchet because I was just dealing that extra 40 or 50% damage, whatever it was, and
Yeah.
it felt really good. Feels good to see those numbers pop up in yellow and orange instead of blue and orange.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So
this is especially important too if you're doing end game dungeons, or if
yeah,
like you're running through end game elite zones. For example, if you want to do Lazarus instrumentality, blunt damage and void damage are a must
yeah,
because
for sure.
all of the ancients are vulnerable to blunt and void. So that's why you see people who say that you have to like link your hammer if you want to run Lazarus if they're looking for a group or whatever, you know? So void gauntlets, hammers, things like that, really good against the ancients and makes a pretty significant difference.
Yeah. So the tip would be if you want a really quick and relatively costless way to increase your damage output, just pay attention to the enemies you're fighting and the damage types you're dealing. And there should be some way that you can sort of specialize or optimize for certain areas that you're going into.
Beautiful. Well, Joe, I normally am the one that field the pitches for Weapon of the Week from Steven. But since Steven's not here, I'm going to pitch you on a Weapon of the Week this week. Okay?
Okay.
I
I'm excited.
understand we have a sword and shield. We've got a rapier, which is like a little pointy sword. And they just announced the great sword, right? So we have some sword weapons that are in the game or coming. But I thought it would be really cool because in the dev update, they kind of talked about taking inspiration from other parts of the world and other cultures and stuff. I thought it would be really interesting if they introduced what's called, I'm probably going to butcher this, the Kilij, which is a curved sword that was used in the Ottoman Empire in the 1600s. So it fits with the time frame. Think of like a kind of like a scimitar, right?
Okay.
Like a really long curved sword, that you see like the guards in Aladdin using and stuff.
Okay.
Um, I think it would be really cool if we could dual wield these. Think like
Oh,
a like really acrobatic, kind of like jumping and kicking and spinning and stuff. A lot of
mhm.
like twirling moves with it. I think that would be really cool and would offer a nice bladed alternative to what we have in the game. I'm thinking it would probably be dex based.
Yeah.
Dex int maybe I think could be really cool.
Yeah.
Really high speed, high maneuverability. I think that would be cool. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that'd be way cool. When you said that, I looked it up, and seeing the pictures, I thought immediately, oh, this is basically the dancer boss from Dark Souls 3,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That would be very cool sort of play style or fighting style to have in the game. And yeah, I could actually see something like this maybe being like a dex focus weapon too.
Ooh.
That could be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, it was actually interesting in the dev update. They did talk about daggers and like the idea of dual wielding
Hmm.
daggers, I think, and how that was one that was, I think, as they put it, like on the table but like far away,
Yeah,
like still just a thought right now.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, this would be maybe like a more flavorful, New World esque version of what like daggers might be in a more standard fantasy setting.
yeah. I think they would be really cool. All right.
Yeah, good pitch, good pitch.
Thanks. Appreciate it. We'll send it up to Papa Bezos, get it
Yep,
printed, get it going.
I'll text Jeff real quick.
Love it. Now, because you're joining us on a semi regular basis, I wanted to get you your own segment. Um, and there's nothing that you love in this game more, and nothing that I like to make fun of you for more than you nerding out over lore.
This is true.
So, for the very first time ever, we are now entering Joby's lore lowdown.
Welcome to my dungeon.
Wow.
Just kidding. Sorry, that's not going to be the vibe of this section. Just needed to give Taylor something else to make fun of me for. Um, but yeah, let's talk about some lore, dude. I've got some real exciting stuff to discuss with you today. So put on your nerdy hat and let's all sit down by the fire and talk about some lore here. I wanted to do a quick little dive into the lore of the Winter Wanderer from the Winter Convergence event that's going on right now, because I think if I had to guess, there's probably a lot of people who are going through the winter villages and just picking up those flamey blue notes on the ground without too much thought and not even reading what's going on. And it's a shame. It's a real shame
Yeah,
because there's some fun stuff in there.
my tip or trick of the week is if you walk up to the lore and press T, it'll add it to your inventory without actually having to read it. So there's my tip of the week.
Yeah, and then you immediately become a degenerate and you lose all your brain cells, and it's a sad ending to your story. So don't do that. Bad tip. Um, okay, let me tell you a little bit about the Winter Wanderer. So to give some context for this, I actually listened to a another New World podcast where they interviewed, let me actually find his name. They interviewed Robert Chesney, who is, I think, the narrative lead at Amazon Game Studios, and oh, sorry, senior narrative designer
Yep.
lead. And he's a really cool guy. He was like super open and was actually like a really funny guy, and he was talking about kind of the inspiration behind a lot of the lore in New World, and specifically with the Winter Convergence. And one of the things that he talked about the most was the idea that this isn't in some other world. This isn't like some vague fantasy setting. This is in our world. And so everything that happens in Eternum is affected by, the world, or the people that are in Eternum are coming from. And so the lore of the Winter Wanderer is kind of this like mysterious uh result or amalgamation of all these interesting um legends and myths and stories that have maybe like a root or a foothold in the real world. And so one of the things that stood out to me from the lore pages of the Winter Wanderer, um if you go from uh if you look in the second page and the third page, it talks about the Winter Wanderer's first aspect in the second page and his second aspect in the third page. But it's interesting. So the second page is very like positive. It's almost like making the Winter Wanderer out to be like a Santa Claus or Father Christmas type of figure, like very benevolent and jolly and happy. And that's his first aspect. It says know him by his first aspect. And then in the next lore page, it says know him by his second aspect, and it gets real dark. It gets real
Oh,
spooky.
we got like a
Um,
Krampus situation.
yeah, basically. Like he comes cloaked in a patchwork coat stitched from all of our nightmares. He comes with a prerogative of vengeance. you know,
Holy cow.
it's like, yeah, it's like good cop, bad cop to the max. And so I kind of have been going through the Winter Convergence event, thinking of this giant Yeti in the villages as like this really goofy like mascot character that I didn't really care a lot about. But now with like this kind of darker undertone and actually like understanding a little bit of what might be motivating him to do what he's doing, it's actually a lot more interesting. And I've enjoyed reading through this stuff a lot more, thinking about that. So I would encourage you to read through um, the Winter Wanderer lore pages. They're actually pretty good. It's like a song. It's like a chant, and it's kind of fun to read through.
Fun. Would you say
Yes.
it's like a Christmas Carol?
I would say it is similar. It's almost as if there were a bunch of winter themed carols from across the world that got mushed together into one and eventually kind of found its way to Eternum. Like if you look at some of the names that they refer it refers to when it's describing the Winter Wanderer, it says call him Yulnir, call him Father Winter, or call him Jotunir or Lord Frost, Winter Warrior. There's like a lot of,
Yeah,
I don't know, kind of maybe like Norwegian sounding
sure.
names in there. It's cool. It's good stuff. There's a lot going on.
Amazing. I'm so happy that you were able to do that and I got to take a nap while you explained the lore. Thank you very much.
Hey, you know what? Your support means a lot to me, and
Little do you
yeah.
know, I actually just created this segment so that I could make fun of you on the podcast about your lore nerdiness. Believe
Yeah.
it or
Well,
not.
I am okay with that because I'll take any and all opportunities to nerd out about the lore in this game. So
Awesome.
I'm okay with you making fun of me.
Well, that is going to wrap up this week's episode of Faction Wars, a New World podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to support the show, you can support us over at patreon.com/NDS podcasts. Not only do you get access to this show, Faction Wars, you also get early access and exclusive access to things like the Dual Screens podcast, where we have interviewed over 300 indie developers, voice actors, and other members of the games industry, as well as the Crossplay podcast, which is our weekly video game news show. And other exclusive content. We've got a D&D campaign that we put up on there. We, do like Q&As and things like that as well. So if you're interested in supporting that, that is patreon.com/NDS podcasts. We literally would not be able to do this show without the very generous support from the people who head over there, especially our Patreon producers, FNH Paul, Colton, the Apprentice Nestler, and Vegas Girl on Fire. Thank you all so much for supporting and being so generous with this group of idiots that we have here. Now, until next week, hopefully we can get the whole crew together. Keep wandering that winter.